Hi there maple fans, and in this series of videos I'll be sharing what I do throughout an entire year on a monthly basis. Please note that these months are based on UK timings, but of course can easily be adapted to anywhere else in the world. Welcome maple fans to this May video, and I'm going to be looking at many very popular cultivars that you no doubt have, and ask the question, if you put your maples into the ground, what would they look like 15-20 years from now? And I can actually show you that because I visited a wonderful Arboretum called Bodenham, and it's in Worcestershire in the UK basically. Lovely place, never been there before, but just really excited to show you what a great selection they've got. And again, because it's a more modern Arboretum, many of what they have is actually still current, it's still available in the shops and garden centres, so I do hope you find this interesting. So as a start for 10, this is my copy of Garnet. Copy is the right word because they're genetic clones, so it certainly is a copy really. And this one I put into that container, I don't know, 3 years ago. Just interesting because it's completely overpotted. I know that now. But remarkably, these Dissectums seem to not to mind very much. And it's done really well, and it's expanded over time. It's on a north-facing garden, so it doesn't get a lot of sun, but just enough perhaps. And we can see some lovely new, really red leaves there, which look really nice. And that's, I think, a nice specimen. You don't want to leave these in really heavy shade though, because this happens. So again, I think Japanese maple collecting is absolutely lovely. If you can go out and about and spot them out in the wild, it's a really nice thing to do. It's kind of great fun hunting them really. And here we can have a lovely specimen. It's certainly a lot bigger than mine, but you know what, after many years it's not enormous, it's not unsensible. These trees have not been pruned too much, they're not been messed around with, they're just put in the ground and left there really. So I can see my tree certainly not gaining that much height, but spreading in different directions. So moving on now to Veridis, luscious green colour, very nice, and has really grown quite a lot actually this season. The combination of sort of quite damp weather and some rain has done us proud, I suppose, for this cultivar, and doesn't seem to mind. So that's come on quite nicely. They're not very fast growing, the Dissectum varieties, but nonetheless that's come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. And again we have Veridis in the ground over here. This in a sort of sheltered spot has no red bits on it whatsoever, looks absolutely great, and is really that true green Veridis kind of colour that perhaps we're looking for. We can see there on the label that it's Veridis. We can see a nice description there. And it's just sort of a bigger version of kind of what I've got, but at least I know it will spread sideways and not upwards, I suppose. Little Princess, love this cultivar, and for those that love bonsai and stuff like that, it's absolutely ready made for it. It really is. The new growth here looks absolutely phenomenal. It always does have this sort of flush of reddy lime green to it when it puts on new growth throughout the season, so that's really nice. And we can just sort of see this sort of very strange, almost mini bonsai like low spreading habit. Really nice to see one of these in the ground, and I haven't ever seen one that's this good. I really haven't. Lovely to discover. As you can see, it's just this enormous carpet, which might really suit some people. So if you've got an area that you want something to go sideways on really, and there we are, there's the label. So it says they're 2005 and 6, so we're talking, knocking on 18 years old here. But my gosh, I mean, this isn't a very fast-growing cultivar, and it's really gone crazy and spread the way it has. But I absolutely love it. I think in some gardens that would be a real asset. And it doesn't block your view. It's a large tree at this point, but because it's low to the ground, it's not very sort of intimidating, if you know what I mean. And if you just have a little look underneath here, because I felt that was really interesting, it's got the craziest growth habit. It's like a bird's made it or something. Most peculiar, all from a very central short stem to go outwards like that is just amazing. So on now to Benaki, which is my little version here. It's got one or two slightly less branches than it did, because it had a little bit of a contest with a powered tool and lost. So he's lost one of his little branches actually, which is a shame. But still looking really nice. Classic leaves that go all the way to the centre before it splits really, and lovely to find one of those again in this location. The Beni in Benaki in Japanese means red, so as you can see here, There's one or two little leaves that have actually leafed out with a slight red tinge to them, but the older leaves have actually developed a green pigment because, again, it's under an extreme amount of shade. Nothing wrong with that. It's a lovely, lovely tree, and it's clearly Beniotaki by the leaf structure. And there we are, just on cue. On the left-hand side, you can see where it's in sun, which I find really interesting because it's almost like two separate trees. So these trees are really adaptable. They stay green when they need to be, and they can go red to absorb sunlight, which is really, really good. Orium, what a classic little tree this is. There's my copy of it. It's a Shiroswanum. It's a sort of not a palmatum, not a dissectum. It's got these big broad leaves to it. And what we can see there is the lovely, lovely structure of this tree. It's a classic tree structure, growing from the middle, spreading quite nicely, really. And again, how fantastic to go and find that out in nature, really, that's been planted. Many, many trees in this arboretum are about the same age, which is great. It's a sort of point in time in their development, and you can see how big they've grown over time. So this Orium is massively bigger to mine, but not crazy size. It hasn't gone to ridiculous proportions. Looks absolutely gorgeous. And in this case, under all this shade as I'm showing you here, it's just in a perfect spot, really. This is a great tree to put in shade. It absolutely loves it. And just to say, if you'd like to come with me on my Acer journey, please do like and subscribe to my little channel. It really, really helps. I've also recently set up a Patreon site, so that's a great way of supporting me too, and help out with some of the costs of my excursions, really. There's also the offer of some personal help, if you'd like it, either in a group format or at a one-to-one basis. So here we have what is obviously a new acquisition of mine, bought from Bartholomew's in Dorset. Absolutely lovely. One of these little lace leaf, very fine leaf trees, rather similar to Cotonuito actually, but don't worry about that. It's a lovely way of getting two Cotonuitos, but one that's slightly different, if that makes sense, because I do love the format of those trees. Absolutely super, and very, very young. Just marvellous again to find one out in the wild, so to speak, just to really understand how it is different to Cotonuito and how it's going to look. I'd say the habit compared to Kenuo is slightly different. The leaf slip structure looks quite similar, and for those people worry about their leaves on these trees looking not what they expected from the plant they bought in that kind of way, or too broad, what happens is over time, miraculously, the new growth has actually had quite broad leaves that look almost like normal palmatum leaves, and then as it grows older they kind of spread and get finer and finer. So it's kind of a very interesting habit, really, in the way it looks. And again, amazing tree for growing from one central stem and just branching up and kind of all over the place, really. So a tree that, you know, many of you will have. These are really popular in garden centres. They're really popular in supermarkets. You can get them absolutely everywhere. And just to note, though, they really love shade. The more shade you give an orange dream, you'll see why it's called orange dream. The leaves will have a reddy tinge to them. If you give them too much sun, they burn. Not the greatest experience, but really lights up a shady area and it can look really, really nice. So in terms of what's available at the Arboretum, this is one here. So again, this video is about what would happen if you put your tree into the ground, leave it 15-20 years, you're going to end up potentially with a tree like this. Now, I actually have one of these in the ground by the side of my house. This is slightly worrying. It would get very large indeed. Having said that, the amount of space it's got because of the driveway would limit it to some degree. So I think its growth rate is going to be reduced in the end somewhat. So difficult to get hold of these because they're quite difficult to cultivate. This is Acer griseum, which is the paperbark maple. And as we can see, you can just about see there, its sort of little trunk there is very tall, very straight, and developing this sort of flaky bark, slightly texture to it, which is really interesting. Not the most interesting leaves in the world, that's true, but some nice autumn colour, and it's the bark that we're really looking at. Great to find one of these as well. I've seen these before out and about, so they're not incredibly rare, but great to find another one. And on this one, it's got that tall upright centre to it. Others seem to be split down from the base and go in different directions, but this is almost like a giant version of the one I've got in a funny old way. It's been pruned down the trunk to some degree to sort of get rid of some side branches, and up it's gone in a massively vertical format to really emphasise that bark structure and help us enjoy it, I suppose, really. But a very unusual plant, but well worth looking at if you can get one. So again, one of my absolute favourites, Kenuo, similar to Kinchi, similar sort of structure really in terms of the leaves, but the tree structure is a little bit different. It's a little bit more sort of tree-like and spreading. Lots of red little bits there on the leaves because I've got it in good sun, and these don't mind full sun in the UK all day. Probably a lot of parts of sort of zone 8B in North America absolutely happy with that as well. But just a beautiful, beautiful tree. And actually these don't get ridiculously big either. So sunny spot, very delicate, very nice. And these trees are also a fantastic replacement. If you don't really want bamboo, or you don't want to go there with that really, they are quite bamboo-like, which can add some real interest. Again, you've got this sort of broader leaves that will eventually get narrower and narrower, and that gives it its little strap leaf type effect. Kenuo means Japanese harpstring basically, and you can kind of see why. And this tree, you know, decade and a half old, something like that, really interesting. And what's great about this Arboretum, and honestly, if you're in the UK, really worth a visit, is the fact you can actually get inside this because it's about 5 trees all planted in a circle. So this has been planted very intelligently by people that really knew what they were doing. There's the Grissim on the other side there we've just passed. But they knew these wouldn't go to huge proportions. They knew roughly their final size, so that's why they planted them that way. And here we have butterfly, and this is another one that is extremely common. It's one of the first ones I bought because it was freely available from a supermarket, to be honest with you. If you can give it shade, you will get this lovely, lovely buttery white sort of pigmentation mixed up with green, which looks lovely. And then you've got these sort of crazy, wacky, curly leaves that go in all sorts of directions, really. Really, really nice tree, particularly if you can give it some shade. And as you can see, and this is a great thing about finding these in the wild, you get a really good idea what would happen if you planted it out. And a lot of people might have a spot in the garden for one of these, because again, 15, 20 years old, it's absolutely fine. It's not gone to massive proportions, and it's looking great actually. And you can see it's just a bigger version of sorts to what I have. The trouble with butterfly on occasion though, and this is a topic worth discussing, is reversion. So sometimes a branch on this tree, like this one, will spontaneously sort of randomly go back to being a normal palmate leaf again. This tree is a little bit renowned for it, but it's fine, it's worth it. What we need to do there really is just to cut that growth out. You see some more at the top, to get rid of it, because if we don't, it might sort of take over the tree. With a little bit of TLC, an absolutely fantastic plant. The Dissectum, love this tree. It's obviously a Dissectum. It's weeping, it's lace leaf, it's fantastic, really easy to get hold of, not a problem at all. But actually, considering it's just Dissectum, you know, nothing too, it's not Crimson Queen or something dramatic like that. Looks marvellous, and in the winter or the autumn gives us the most gorgeous, gorgeous colours. So one of these trees that most people I think should get. It looks really, really nice, and easy to grow. So here we have a Dissectum again in this Arboretum. Looks brilliant, and what we can see there, it's not that much kind of crazy much bigger than mine really, but it's really, really kind of very dense. It's got lots of internal growth. It's also overlapping growth, and creates this very sort of green mound type structure really. But again, I would know from looking at that it's not going to get crazily big and get out of hand. So next on the list we have a really popular maple. Probably get this from a garden centre, certainly from specialist Acer nurseries. It's a firm favourite, and it's Crimson Queen. They did actually have some Crimson Kings there, which look remarkably similar to this, to be honest with you. But Crimson Queen's been the one that's a little bit more robust and has found its way into the market, really. Lovely tree, crimson, you know, it's that deep red colour. Pretty heat tolerant, you know, maybe the very hottest midday sun in July wouldn't be too good in the UK, but very, very nice. And underneath that crazy kind of Dissectum spreading habit really, which is just absolutely lovely. And there we can see it's fairly high grafted, so the graft, by the way, is almost disappeared in terms of visibility now. Not only is it concealed by the leaves, but it's merged into one, so that's looking absolutely fine. There's me doing a little bit of gardening there just to move the label out of the way. And you know, again, these Dissectums very slow growing. What I would say though is actually some trees grow quite quickly initially to get to an okay size and then really slow down, though they never really stop growing, to be honest with you. Nice location, and actually again, seeing it out and about, even though it's in shade, it's looking pretty good, and it's kept that red colour. So this may surprise you, this is actually not a Japanese maple. It's a lovely cherry tree, a Japanese cherry called Koji no Me, which means flight of the butterflies. So that looks, what a nice name really. But thought I'd include it. Really popular. It's a dwarf variety. It's in loads and loads of garden centres, and it's really easy to get in the spring here in the UK and also the USA. And I was really pleased again to find a sort of grown-up copy of it that's many years old. This is really interesting to me. It's not wild. It's not got fantastically big. It is a dwarf. It was found on Mount Fuji actually, sort of growing randomly, and someone made some cuttings and managed to cultivate it. But what a lovely tree, and looking fantastic.